Jai Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhar, Shiva Sadi Gaura Bhatta. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Okay, again, bear with me a couple of minutes. I just kind of sat down and opened up my computer. I'm just going to now bring up the Harinam Harmony. And if I remember correctly, we are still on. Not like it's taking too long. It's nice. We're looking on the Seva Aparad. Is the going through the offences to be avoided. So it's been included. It's interesting. There's a 10 offences, and then further of interest is general offences down to service called Seva Aparad. And this is a short chapter, so we'll probably finish it today. Then we'll go into chapter 14. Yeah, perhaps someone could just read the rest of this chapter, because we've gone through the list of offences. Now there's just general comments on the subject. Then we can go into chapter 15. Right? Let's check.
Yeah, it is like, yeah.
Yeah, okay, so Chandra, you have your hand there. Other devotees are still coming in, I think. So, but you can begin reading. It's here, you see it here, one who is engaged in deity worship.
Okay, sorry. Seva aparad is to be avoided by the servitor. One who is engaged in deity worship must carefully avoid the seva aparads, and all Vaishnavas must strictly abstain from the nama aparads and relish the taste of pure devotional service to Lord Krishna. The devotee himself is the best judge of which offense is to be vigilant about, according to the service he is engaged in. But the responsibility for avoiding namaparad is applicable to every Vaishnava at all times. In the stage of Bhav Seva, Seva Aparad is almost non-existent. That devotee who, in a secluded place, feeling separation from the deity, is steadily engaged in worshipping the Lord in the mood of loving ecstasy, bhav, must diligently avoid the 10 offenses against the holy name, because the nama parads are the source of all ills. Bhav Seva commences only after one has surmounted the nam aparad. In this stage of Seva, one has to be free from all offenses. In Bhav Seva, mental service is foremost. There is hardly opportunity for Seva aparad. O Lord Chaitanya, you have instructed Srila Raghunath Das Goswami on the worship of Sri Govardhan Shila. Thusly, as recorded in Chaitanya Charitamrita Antya Leela 6294-304. This stone is the transcendental form of Lord Krishna. Worship the stone with great eagerness. Worship this stone in the mode of goodness, like a perfect Brahman. For by such worship you will surely attain ecstatic love of Krishna without delay. For such worship one needs a jug of water and a few flowers from a tulsi tree. This is worship in complete goodness, when performed in complete purity. With faith and love, you should offer 8 soft tulsi flowers, each with 2 tulsi leaves, one on each side of each flower. After thus advising him how to worship, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu personally offered Raghunath Das the Govardhan Shila with his transcendental hand. As advised by the Lord, Raghunath Das worshipped the Shila in great transcendental jubilation. Swarup Damodar gave Raghunath Das 2 cloths, each about 6 inches long, a wooden platform, and a jug in which to keep water. Thus Raghunath Das Goswami began worshipping the stone from Govardhan. And as he worshipped, he saw the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, the son of Nanda Maharaj, directly in the stone. Thinking of how he had received the Govardhan Shila directly from the hand of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Raghunath Das was always overflooded with ecstatic love. The amount of transcendental bliss that Raghunath Das enjoyed simply by offering water and tulsi is impossible to achieve, even if one worships the deity with 16 kinds of paraphernalia. After Raghunath Das had thus worshipped the Govardhan Shila for some time, Swarup Damodar spoke to him as follows: offer the Govardhan stone 8 kodis worth of the first class sweetmeats known as khaja and sandesh. If you offer them with faith and love, they will be just like nectar. Meditators on the holy name perform bhav seva. Meditation upon the holy name of the Lord engenders bhav seva or spontaneous loving devotional service. O Lord Chaitanya, this is your grace upon the jivas, all the different limbs of sadhana bhakti or the practice of devotional service. Finally, culminates in prema. One must therefore submerge himself in the nectar of chanting the holy name and forget all other processes of elevation. It is all the strength of Sri Haridas Thakur's instruction that the lowly person without means can recite the Harinam Chintamani.
Okay, thank you. Hare Krishna. So that completes chapter 14. A few interesting points there. Was there any questions? Otherwise, I can bring out these points.
Labanga is telling she can't get in, but
Oh, let me just check. Let me just check. She might be trying to get in and I'm not. And yeah, let me just 1 second. Let me press a few buttons. Okay, yeah, sorry, my fault. She's been banging on the door, but I didn't hear her banging on the door. Excuse me, Maulavanga, Hare Krishna. Sorry.
that's waiting, she said.
And yeah, she's in now. Now I've let her in. Hare Krishna.
I think they forget that it's at 5 o'clock, this class, because all the rest start at 6 o'clock.
Yeah, me as well. That's why I have to be reminded the day before. Oh yeah, I forgot. Okay. Yeah. So first of all, here is this. We're all engaged in specific types of service. Some of you are cooking, some of you are making garlands, some of you may be doing other preaching activities or service. So we're being asked here to identify and be on guard against specific offenses that may be made. So what's just been described is the offenses that can be made in deity worship. Prabhupada, in one place, he describes that that's the purpose of, well, we should be trained in such a way that we avoid offenses. It's a matter of training. As we know, there's lots of minor, you could say. They're not major. They may be major, but there is lots of minor offenses that you can commit during deity worship. There's a bit of feedback coming through here. Don't know who is it coming from. So we just went through them. There's quite a few in number. There's offenses to having the bad attitude, offenses in the actual offering of upachars, regards to cleanliness, also punctuality. So these are all there. And yeah. Bhava Seva, we're going to be hearing that more in the next chapter. So someone who's at an advanced state of Krishna consciousness, they're automatically going to render devotional service in a high level of purity, where there will be no seva apparats, yeah, or nam apparats. That's the qualification of entering into what's called Bhava Seva. Yeah. And it says here, mental service is foremost. So that's what we mentioned yesterday one's meditating upon Nam, Gun, Rup, Leela, and the pastimes of Krishna. So that's going on that's going internally. So because the mind is so situated, there's hardly so spontaneously devotees will be avoiding save aparats. So if you want to become free from save aparat, that's one idea. Come to the level of bhava seva. Of course, one comes before the other. Avoiding offenses. So then he speaks about worshipping the Govardhan Shila. This is well known from Chaitanya Charitamrita. And whenever I read this, I always think of our worship. I was worshipping Govardhan this morning, actually. And this part always interests me, the actual details that Lord Chaitanya gives here. You should offer 8 soft tulsi flowers, each with 2 tulsi leaves, 1 on each side of each flower. So that's very specific. We've never managed to do this, but this was specific for Raghunath Das Goswami. It's not saying that everyone who worships Govardhan Shila should offer this, but you can if you want. If you are worshipping Shalagram Shilas at home, Govardhan Shila, this may be of interest. And generally, the worship by these devotees will generally be quite simple. Yeah, like Raghunath Das and the other Goswamis, because their time was more spent in Nam Bhajan and also in writing. So they didn't spend 2 or 3 hours doing a puja. It would be very quick, half an hour, 20 minutes perhaps, unless they go into great ecstasy. It seems like Raghunath Das Goswami did, but here there's the simple, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave him paraphernalia for worship, which was mentioned, which is here. Just 2 cloths, a wooden platform, and a jug. That's it. And because in worshipping the Lord, in worshipping the deity form of the Lord, there are what's called, it mentioned here, 16 kinds of paraphernalia. So that's called Sauda, Pachara, Puja. And that's what generally all temples will worship with, 16 kinds of paraphernalia. Yeah, like we do this worship for Gaunitai and Gidikovardhan. There's 16 items of worship that we offer. But the most important item, what's the most important item that you can offer the Lord?
Tulsi.
No, something more important than that.
There's so many things to offer.
But what's the most important thing? If you don't offer this, everything else is
Love,
no use.
devotion.
Devotion, yes. That's it. That's the most important upachar that you can offer. So that's what's being mentioned here. The amount of transcendental bliss that Raghunath enjoys simply by offering water and tulsi is impossible to achieve, even if one worships the deity with 16 kinds of paraphernalia. Because of his devotion, the Lord was happy just to receive water. And anyone can tell there's another description of this time Shalagram Shila worship that's given in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, which was worshipped very simply with great dramatic effects.
Madan Mohan. Nathan Goswami's Madan Mohan.
Yeah, that's correct. Sorry?
Advaita Acharya?
Yeah, Advaita Acharya.
Yeah.
He literally, he was worshipping not a Govardhan Shila, but I think a Shalagram. Forget which one. But he was worshipping with Ganges water and tulsi leaves. But again, it was accompanied with great fervent devotion and begging. And that was one of the reasons why Lord Chaitanya manifested by his offering of Shalagram Shila Tulsi leaves with great, powerful devotion. So, but in here it does say, then he upgrades the worship. So the worship becomes upgraded here. So Srup Damodar, who was given care of Raghunath Das, then upgraded worship, like here. Offer Govardhan stone, 8 kinds of kodis worth, so that's money. So amount of money, fresh, first-class sweetmeats known as kaja. Kaja, we know, is kaja is Jagannath's tongue, isn't it? Kaja. Kajana and Sandesh. So there was an upgrade in the worship. Now, who made that kaja? Whether it sounds like he would have bought this from a confectioner, from a sweet maker. That's interesting as well. Yeah. So he's here. He's to 8 kodis worth of the first. At least that's what I understand. Because he's asking him to worship him with this amount of money worth of sweets. So it sounds like this amount of money is going to buy these kaja and sandesh. I haven't heard of stories of Raghunath making sandesh or kaja. Again, they're absorbed in their bhajan of chanting and renovating the holy places. And also for Raghunath Das, his sadhana is famous, like lines in stone. You can read about that in Chaitanya Charitamrita. I think you will pay 1,000 obeisances a day, or there's something like that, and circumambulate Govardhan every day, and do this puja, and write books, and chant the holy name, probably minimum 64 rounds. Yeah, some of the Goswamis, they would, especially Rupa Goswami, Sanat Goswami, their main bhajan or their main sadhana was writing books. So it's not as if they was all chanting 192 rounds a day. Haridas Thakur, yes. Yeah, Haridas Thakur, yes. But other Goswamis, no. They had other services. Yeah, even I was hearing from Indra Swami. Interesting to hear about Rupa Goswami's worship of Govinda Dev, is it? Did you get that right? Yeah, where he was, when Govinda Dev was first installed, because Rupa Goswami discovered Govinda Dev, then he established the worship, and he was spending a lot of time doing the puja, and he was in great happiness doing it, but he didn't have time to follow Lord Chaitanya's instruction of writing books. So he wrote to Lord Chaitanya. Then Lord Chaitanya sent some assistants to actually help do the Pujari Seva for Govinda Dev. And so then he had more time for writing. So I found these details interesting. Sometimes you have a certain vision of what Rupa Goswami was doing, but actually he was probably feeling within himself that he's not following the instructions of Lord Chaitanya. He might have been feeling a bit difficult because he loves worshipping the deities, but at the same time, he hasn't got time to do what he was instructed to do. Anyway, so like that, Raghunath Das Goswami's worship. Any questions on that? Or observe. All right, so now we're gonna, and this will be an interesting chapter, because specifically I think in this chapter, let's see, but in this chapter, there's a confidential in the sense of, do you remember we discussed the esoteric and esoteric means of worship given by Bhaktisiddhanta and done by the Goswamis, by the Radhakund Bhavajis, that kind of disagreement. Here, I think in Harinam Chintamani, I think I might be mistaken, but we're going to hear of a process of Siddha Pranali, where one gets assigned a spiritual form to meditate upon. So that might come up here. So we have to, I guess we have to clarify things if it does. But let's see. I remember, yeah, I'm just scrolling through. Yeah, you can see it's quite detailed here. Here's the, like here, for instance, this is a meditation on someone doing this type of bhajan, where they're meditating on the age of a gopi or the manjari, the name, the form, the group attire, etc. So get ready for that. We're going to hear about that. All right, that's enough for me speaking. Let's have someone else reading. Hare Krishna. So, Mavula Vangalatika, you'd like to begin us in chapter 15?
Yeah, thank you. 15, the Bhajan of confidential worship. All glories to Sri Gadadhar Pandit and Lord Gauranga. All glories to Lord Nityananda. All glories to Sri Advaita Acharya, the Lord of Mother Sita. All glories to all the devotees of Lord Chaitanya. One who rejects all other processes of elevation and simply immerses himself in the chanting of the holy name is truly a magnanimous soul and is glorious in all respects. Lord Chaitanya said, O Haridas, simply on the strength of your wonderful devotion, you are conversant with all knowledge, all the Vedic philosophical conclusions about the topics of the Absolute Godhead, Jiva, Maya, the pure name of the Lord, Namabhas and Namaparad, are revealed in your speech. It is therefore rightly said of you that the Vedas gleefully prance upon your tongue. Lord Chaitanya desired that the precepts of Namras, the topmost spiritual science of the mellows of the holy name, be revealed through the mouth of Srila Haridas, and so the Lord spoke in that way. Lord Chaitanya continued, now please instruct me about Namras. How can a jiva become eligible to receive it? Srila Haridas Thakur then prayed at the Lord's lotus feet, submitting that whatever he would speak on this subject would be inspired by the Lord himself. Srila Haridas replied, the Vedas proclaim ras, or transcendental mellow, to be of the same spiritual substance as the supreme absolute truth and the realm of pure transcendence. Worldly poets dabble in a rasa that is totally mundane. Factually, theirs is not ras, but a perversion of it. The rasa that exists beyond the jurisdiction of the 24 elements of material nature is transcendental and ever situated in pure goodness. This, in truth, is real ras. Even the Atmaramas, the self-satisfied transcendentalists who have surpassed material nature, are unable to perceive this wonderful supramundane display of divine variegatedness. Hence, they are bereft of ras. Eternal ras is a spiritual cognizance intrinsic in pure transcendence. It is ever blissful and resides at the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord. The Supreme Absolute Truth exists distinctly as Shaktiman, or the energetic, and Shakti, or the energy. Qualitatively, Shaktiman and Shakti are the same, though some differences between the two are to be appreciated. Shaktiman is always the absolute autocrat, willful and independent, and Shakti always displays his full and supreme potency. The Shakti potency manifests in three ways: the Chit potency, or the spiritual nature, the Jiva, or marginal potency, and Maya, or material energy. The Chit Shakti reveals the supreme object, his holy name, abode, pastimes, beauty, etc. And Lord Krishna is that supreme object. His exquisite dark complexion, Sham, is his beauty. Goloka is his abode, and the representation of his pastimes. His name, abode, form, qualities, and pastimes are an ever-existent feature of the non-dual spiritual substance. Transcendental variegatedness is the activity of the superior divine potency. Lord Krishna is the original form of all spiritual qualities, and his eternal nature is Parashati, or his supreme divine potency. Therefore, there is no inherent difference between the form of Krishna and his divine nature of Parashakti. Yet, spiritual variety, ras, creates an impression of difference. This is exhibited only in the spiritual world. The reflection of the Parashakti is called Maya Shakti, or material nature. She is also known as the external potency. ordered by Lord Krishna, she has produced this material world, or Devi Dham. The marginal region, Tatashta, of the Parashati manifests the Jivashakti. The Jiva is eternal, inconceivably and simultaneously one with, yet different from, the Supreme Lord. He is the Lord's energy. He is Lord Krishna's energy, and is therefore counted among the paraphernalia of the Lord's service. There are two categories of jivas, Nityabada and Nityamukta, or eternally conditioned and eternally liberated souls. The eternally liberated jiva is entitled to render eternal devotional service. The eternally conditioned jiva is engrossed in material activities. He can be said to be of two types, extroverted and introspective. The introspective Nityabada jivas are endeavoring to reach out to Lord Krishna. The extroverted jivas are totally absorbed in gross matter and thus are far removed from Krishna. They simply want to exploit things originally meant for Lord Krishna's service for their own enjoyment. The more fortunate and pious jivas amongst the introspective ones come into contact with sadhus, and in their association take to the chanting of the Lord's holy name, which ultimately transports them to the portals of the spiritual sky. The less fortunate introspective jivas are attracted to the paths of karma and jnana, by which they worship many demigods or finally merge into the impersonal Brahman.
Let's just press pause there. It reminds me of the first chapter, where it's describing a bit of the tattva, about the different energies of the Lord. Now it's being spoken of again, about the internal energy and the external energy. And ultimately, we can guess it's establishing the point that the holy name is of the same substance completely. It's actually Chit Shakti. So just as that energy can reveal the spiritual world. So that energy is contained, or is the holy name. So
is Radharani included in the Parashati, or what does she come under there? Is she in any of those categories as is energy or part of the absolute truth?
Well, for sure, she's part of the absolute truth, and she's part of the spiritual qualities. She's the fountainhead of all potencies, actually.
So would she be under the Shakti category?
Shaktiman.
Shaktiman.
Shaktiman. There's Krishna's Shakti, then there's his potency. So his potency is essentially manifest through Sri Radha. As the counterpart, which more or less, or which completely brings pleasure to Krishna. So that's so much I can say in that without further study. So Parashati is another name for Chit Shakti, as far as I can see here. Para means paramaha, or above, so spiritual. So it's another word for the spiritual energy. And the spiritual energy is different because it's absolute, in the sense that, as described here, the supreme absolute truth exists distinctly as Shaktiman, or energetic. So that would be the internal potency, the Haladini potency, and Shakti, or the energy. So qualitatively, they are the same. Although they may be different, the differences between the two are to be appreciated. So one is the lover and one is the beloved. So reflecting here in the material world, which doesn't have that same absolute potency, what's coming from Krishna, we have the Maya Shakti. And then in between the both, like hanging around and often not sure which direction to go in, there's the marginal Shakti, and that's us, Tatashta. So sometimes we're overcome by the sometimes we are overcome. We are by the Parashati, which manifests the Jivashakti. Interesting, this is quite technical. The Jivashakti comes from the spiritual world, as we know. But sometimes we have a tendency to also identify with matter. So then that's why this paragraph then describes about Nityapada and Nityasiddha. And then interesting how these two words are used, extroverted and introspective. Okay, so extroverted are those who are looking without for pleasure, but the introspective are those who look within into their relationship with Krishna. They're introspective. They're not extroverted. No. Yes. Does that help a little bit? That two people waiting in the waiting room. 1 second.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I wish I'd perhaps next week, let's see, perhaps I'll take some notes on this, because this is a progression that's being described here. So I can take notes on it and share the notes, so we're clear what's being described. Different Shaktis are being described. But in essence, it will conclude that the holy name is totally consists of the internal energy. Yeah. All right. Anyone else like to read? There's no hands there. Otherwise, I can jump in. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, perhaps I'm not looking properly. Let me look. Okay, anyway, I read anyway. Okay, we're here. Am I right? We're there, yeah? So we're reading from.
Oh, can I read? Okay, sorry.
Too late. You can read next. Okay. The holy name of Lord Krishna is the bud of the flower of rasa. Okay. Rasa is a big subject in of itself. It consists of 5 aspects. You get this right. One is Stahi Bhav, one is Vibhav, one is Anubhav, one is Sattvika Bhav, and one is Vyapachari Bhav. These are the ingredients of rasa. So the holy name of Lord Krishna is the bud of the flower of rasa. Rasa is the essence of pure transcendence, and this rasa, by the grace of Krishna, is propagated in the material world in the form of his holy name. With the first appearance of the bud of the holy name is invoked the enchanting Shama Sundara form of Krishna in Goloka Vrindavan. Okay? The 64 transcendental qualities of Lord exude like an irresistible fragrance from the flower bud, now partially blossomed. All right, so this is obviously Sudanam, pure chanting, okay? Like an irresistible fragrance from a flower bud now partially blossomed. When this flower comes into full bloom, it manifests the eternal and confidential pastimes of Lord Krishna, known as the Astakaliya Leela. So we discussed that yesterday. That was specific hearing. All right. Or the 8 free hourly pastimes. And although this manifestation is transcendental, it still appears to the devotee within the material world. All right. So this is there's different types of meditation. That there's one where you're going to read and you're going to, using your somewhat materially molded mind and senses and subtle body, you're going to invoke that within your mind based on what you've read. Okay. Now that will only be done when one's chanting is at a sufficient stage of purity and steadiness, etc. But you are going there. But what's being described here is something else, where this is coming down. I think we used the word, it's being downloaded. Remember we came up with that. So it's coming from the spiritual world, because the holy name is, how would it describe it? Is the bud of the flower of rasa. So by chanting the holy name, it kind of flowers. And all of Krishna's here, 64 of his unlimited qualities, it blossoms. It's like a flower. Yeah. And all this is going on within the material world. The spiritual world is manifesting within the devotee's heart and mind by the holy name. Yeah. Latent within the jiva are the minuscule spiritual potencies. Haladini, this will be, alada is said here, samvit, knowledge. The Sarup Shakti, the internal potency of the Lord himself, descends to contact and awaken these tiny spiritual potencies of the jiva. All right. All this is effected by the causeless mercy and influence of the holy name. The Sarup Shakti contains the very essence of the Haladini and Samvit potencies, so bliss and knowledge potencies. The amalgam of the Sarup Shakti with the jiva's bliss and knowledge produces a mentality conducive to pure, spontaneous devotion, known as Bhakti Sarup Shakti. Okay, thus one reaches a state of the perfection known as Stahi Bhav, and here's these ingredients of rasa. Can anyone tell us what Stahi Bhav is? Well, it's got permanent emotion, but can anyone give us an example of what's the Stahi Bhav of Mother Sauda?
You know, when she looked, sees Krishna's shoes or anything like that, she
Yeah,
remembers.
well, this kind of the Stahi Bhav of Mother Sauda is fraternal.
Yeah.
She has parental, so that's her Stahi Bhav. So that's a permanent emotion which she feels for Krishna. And the gopis, what's their Stahi Bhav?
Madhurya.
Yeah, Madhuya. And the cowherd boys,
Sakya.
Sakya. And his servants, servitude. That's,
That's
yeah,
Dasya.
Dasya. So that's their Stahi Bhav. Well, that's their permanent attraction.
Good.
And that's the king of the ingredients of rasa. That's the main one. Now that is spiked with different ecstasies in the form of vibhav, anubhav, sattvika bhav, and vyapachari bhav. Yeah. So vibhav is a stimulus. Is that in Krishna or his devotees that give rise to ecstasy? So Nectar Devotion, Rupa Goswami describes this vibhav, and then he elaborates on Krishna's qualities. He gives 64 as being impetus for vibhav. Yeah. And this vibhav itself will have a consequence of further ecstasy, which is known as anubhava. Remember, you might remember some of this in our readings of Nectar Devotion. Anubhava is, for instance, when a devotee, upon this vibhav of Krishna's qualities, for instance, they smile broadly, or they laugh, or they dance, or they cry, or they dance, this anubhava, where they choose to express that ecstasy of appreciating Krishna. You follow? So how Krishna is appreciated will differ according to the Stahi Bhav. Like the gopis, their appreciation of Krishna and their ecstasy they feel for him will be like girls attracted to a young boy, but in a pure way. Yeah. And and Mother Yasoda, she will be going to ecstasy, seeing his cute little face, and his adorable features. That will be the cause of vibhav. And that will be expressed in tears coming or dancing or in anubhava. Right? And sattvika bhav is when one has this anubhav is when they choose to exhibit, not choose, they want to exhibit their ecstasy. Sattvika bhav, where they have no choice, the ecstasy is so strong that it has physical effects on their body. It physically affects them, and they become lost in this, like, attack ecstasy. They get attacked by ecstasy. Sounds nice, no? Get attacked by ecstasy, and they have no control. It's called Sattvika bhav. And Vyapachari bhav is when that gets really heightened to a really intense degree. The emotion becomes really intensified. And that example I think we've given is like when Mother Sauda, when she saw Krishna in the coils of Kaliya. We mentioned this in class recently. And she went into her emotions, and her attachment for Krishna became really intensified because her beautiful young Krishna was in danger. So her attachment went to a maddened height of intensity. That's called Vyapachari. Oh, and it's just described, like, I'm just going on here, and it's described in the next paragraph. Sorry about that. Hare Krishna. So all this is happening when a devotee is sitting there chanting Hare Krishna. For an advanced sadhaka. Yeah. All these emotions are being revealed. You know. That's why these devotees chant like Haridas Thakur 192 rounds. They're not just chanting 192 rounds because they've been told to, but they made a vow to. It's because all of this is going on in their chanting. I don't know what degree, what depends on their stahi bhav. Anyway, so I'll just read a couple more paragraphs, just 3 more paragraphs, then Nimo Mati can continue.
Can I just ask a question?
Yeah, please. Any questions about that? If we can attempt to answer.
These devotees who are chanting rounds, so they in our lives we have priorities than unfortunately we have priorities than chanting that many rounds. We have other things to do, unfortunately. So for them, they don't see that there's a requirement in their lives other than chanting the holy name. Is that right, Prabhu? Because we have our priorities, unfortunate priorities.
Yeah, I mean, they are Babajis, for instance. The Goswamis, well, they were Gosti and Undis, but they were Babajis. So that was what they were showing the world. For example, like Haridas Thakur, showing the potency of the holy name. But this is it's not absolutely dependent upon quantity, it's quality. So we may not be sitting down to chant like Haridas Thakur. We may have many duties, like Srila Prabhupada, for example. He was not chanting all day. He was managing a worldwide society.
Yeah, he did.
Also, he was writing books. I mean, he always had his japa bead bag in his hand, you see. You always see that everywhere, morning walks, going into temples, and he always had his hand in his bead bag in that sense. But you can guarantee that even though he wasn't chanting, say, 192 rounds, at least as far as I know, he wasn't, but his chanting would have been of quality.
And also he's chanting all the time, isn't it, Prabhu? Although he's not chanting on the beads, but he's chanting all the time.
Yeah, if you understand that chanting means to glorify the Lord, His holy name, to glorify the Lord, that's Sankirtan. So that's what Prabhupada was doing.
Yeah,
he was doing Sankirtan.
When you were saying it came to me, my Guru Maharaj once told, he said he chanted this one. He said, why not you finish your 16 rounds and go and do some preaching?
Yeah, that's it. So instructions there. So just chant 16 rounds and go and preach.
Go and do some preaching. That is what he was told by Srila Prabhupada.
Yeah. So I'm just trying to answer your question. Like you said, well, it's a shame that we don't get this opportunity. We have so many different engagements. So I'm saying, actually, it's not, in one sense, quantity is good, but
Making a
really,
comment to
yeah, it's
see the
quality.
sides.
And we
Yeah,
have practical, practically we can see Srila Prabhupada himself as an example. He definitely tasted great ecstasies in chanting, but it wasn't because of quantity. It was due to quality.
yeah.
Yeah. So let's just read these three paragraphs here. Vibhav, the element that excites sentiment. Okay, so that has two divisions. This is all from Nectar of Devotion. Alambana and Udipan. Alambana, or the person who is the object of sentiment, is again of two. Vishaya, that's Krishna, and Ashraya, the receptacle, one who experiences love of the Vishaya, of the subject. That's the devotee, okay? The Ashraya. The devotee of Lord Krishna is the Ashraya, and Lord Krishna himself is the Vishaya. Udipan, or the impetus, is Lord Krishna's beauty, qualities, etc. So that's what is given in Nectar of Devotion. Anubhav, the physical expression of permanent emotions, is what results from Vibhav, or the activities of Alambana and Udipan. Later, when these emotions become more intense, they transform into Sattvika Bhav. Tears from the eyes, etc. Hair standing on end. The 8 principal ecstatic symptoms. At the same time, all these sanchari bhavas, vyapachari bhavas, apparently disturbing symptoms, also come into play. Yes, so that's disturbing. That Mother Sauda was disturbed, but that was a symptom of her ecstasy. Rasa is like a machine. Rati, or permanent emotion, is the axle of this machine. So that's a Stahi Bhav. Once the machine starts moving by the combined energy of the 4 bhavas, the permanent emotion, or Stahi Bhav, is then converted into rasa. The devotee who is the ashraya, or shelter or container of ecstatic love for Krishna, becomes the enjoyer of that rasa. And the rasa mentioned here is the Raj rasa, or the spiritual mellow of Vrindavan. That rasa is the essence of everything and is the highest goal of the jiva. The Vedas expound 4 goals: dharma, artha, kama, and moksha, religious principles, economic development, regulated sense enjoyment, and liberation. But beyond these goals of the Vedas, the actual acumen of all perfection is rasa. Fully realized and perfected beings are entitled to taste that rasa. Okay, so you're learning about rasa tattva here again. More. Any questions about that? Otherwise, Nimai Matu can continue reading. Hope that kind of understood that to some degree. As much degree as we can. It's a very elevated subject. How can we possibly penetrate? Okay, if there's no questions or comments, we can dig deeper, we can go further. Okay, Nitai Mata, you like to read here, beginning here?
Yes, Prabhu, thank you.
Among the introspective jivas.
Elevation via the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Amongst the introspective jivas, he who is attracted to pure devotion service is the most evolved. The jiva takes up the path of bhakti only after he has accrued sufficient sukriti, piety, from previous birth. When he develops strong faith, Shraddha, he comes into contact with the pure and saintly spiritual master. By the grace of the spiritual master, he is initiated into the chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, the holy names of the divine couple. Although in the beginning this jiva has Shraddha, his desire for material success poses an obstacle on his path of progress.
Carry on. Excuse me.
this divine couple there is an asterisk. Do you want me to read that
No,
part
it's
also?
okay. Just carry on.
Okay, okay. Although in the beginning,
This G
okay,
shut
I
up.
did it. Yeah, the spiritual master graces him with the disciplinary process suitable for overcoming this obstacle. Thus, he gains spiritual strength from chanting. Chanting on Tulsi beds and meditating on a fixed number of holy names daily is the best form of worship and will surely lead to success. Therefore, in the beginning, a little time should be spent in seclusion daily for full concentration upon the holy name. Gradually, as chanting increases, a more profound relationship with the holy name develops, and the material impediments fall away. Sorry. The path of bhakti features two broad occupations: deity worship and chanting and meditating upon the holy name. Although both occupations are expedient,
Expedient. Yeah.
chanting and meditating on the holy name is preferred by the more deeply serious devotees. Many elevated pure devotees sometimes chant aloud the holy names on their beds and at other times meditate upon Krishna's pastimes on the beds. The advantage of performing kirtana or audibly chanting the Mahamantra on the beds is that three kinds of devotion service, hearing, chanting, and remembering, are accomplished simultaneously. Of course, all the nine limbs of devotion service reside in the holy name, but chanting and remembering are the two best limbs. Chanting automatically manifests the other aspects of devotion service. Example, Padasevanam, Dasyam, Sakyam, Atmanivedanam, and so on. With full faith that the holy name and the person Krishna are one and the same, and discarding the Namaparadas, one should chant in a lonely place with deep concentration.
Sorry.
Can I continue?
Yeah, yeah. Is there any questions? You could just pause for a temporary pause in case any questions here.
This is this is in essence that we should be doing.
Yes, this is what we're aiming for. This is what we should be doing.
Yeah,
Yeah. So this is our main worship, actually.
yeah.
So this is our main worship. It's through the holy name. And interesting, I mentioned here, deity worship was mentioned. Yeah.
Hmm.
Two broad occupations. The path of bhakti has two broad occupations: deity worship and chanting the holy name. Yeah. So most of us are doing both to one degree or another. But interesting, deity worship's got a mention there.
So, Prabhu, when you said the deity worship is cooking for the deities, everything, isn't it right, Prabhu? And
Yeah,
dressing up the deities, oh,
yeah,
everything.
yeah,
Yeah?
yeah,
Okay,
yeah. That's it. Yeah.
thank you.
Okay, you can continue.
Okay. Three kinds of introspective jivas. Three kinds of jivas are captivated by the external phenomena, the gross materialists, the karmis, and the jnanis. They They are therefore all extroverts, chasing after false hopes for happiness. The gross materialistic endeavors for sensual delights. The karmi aspires for ep- ephemeral heavenly bliss in the hereafter. The jnani, the karmi aspires the spherical heavenly bliss in the hereafter. The jnani is wholly concerned with how to mitigate his existential suffering. After surpassing these stages, the jiva becomes introspective. The introspective jiva is divided into three categories: kanistha, madhyama, and uttama, unified, intermediate, and advanced. The introspective unified rejects demigod worship and worships only Krishna, though with certain material motivations. He is in experience in the understanding of the spiritual identities of himself, Lord Krishna, and the pure devotee of the Lord. Although he is simple and naive, he is not offensive. He is just preoccupied with himself. Therefore, the Neophytes are not considered to be pure Vaishnavas, though they are uh,
Hmm.
though they are certainly to be seen as Vaishnava Praya, or resembling Vaishnavas.
Yeah, just to pause here. Just
Yeah.
amazing. Time literally is almost scary how time just disappeared. It's like 5:56. It seems like we only just almost mystical. It seems we've been reading for 5 minutes. But I thought this was interesting, an interesting definition of a neophyte or beginner devotees is that, where is it said here?
Beginning.
They are, yeah,
He's in
he is,
experience
he is preoccupied with himself.
himself. Yeah.
So this is a classic in the beginning stage. Oh, I'm struggling. I'm this, I'm that, I'm this, I'm that. I can't do this, I can't do that. But as one advances, one is absorbed in Krishna, and one doesn't really think of much of oneself. One's more thinking of Krishna. You know, they're kind of. So I just was in. I thought that was an interesting description of. They're preoccupied with himself or ourselves. You know, our problems, our this. So it's only natural. We shouldn't artificially think we don't need to address our problems, but just from an advanced perspective, these devotees they're just absorbed in Krishna. You know, Krishna's pastimes, Krishna's Leela. And unfortunately, we perhaps better stop there because I've got another Zoom
Prabhu,
meeting.
this
Go on. Sorry?
Prabhu, this last para is the really three kinds of introspective jivas finishes with the last para. And the other one is a subheading, advancement in hearing and chanting and remembering. Only that this last para is belong to the same thing.
The last para, you mean paragraph?
Which I have to read now, is the last one.
Which one? You just read this one, huh?
No, there's one more after that. It's a small one.
Okay, yeah, okay. All right, I'm with you. Okay, yeah, let's read that. Yeah, go ahead. Then we'll stop.
The intermediate introspective jiva, or the madhyama, is a pure devotee and is very firmly situated in devotion. As for the uttama or advanced introspective jiva, so much can be said about him. He has reached a state of perfect, what is that word? Equanimity. Okay,
Equanimity, yeah, equipoised.
cannot become truly introspective without first being situated in knowledge of the equal position of the holy name and Krishna himself. The introspective jiva automatically has a single-minded faith in the Supreme Lord. Hence, he is entitled to chant the holy name purely. Thank
Okay.
you, Prabhu.
So perhaps we stop there. So in order to enter into the mysteries of the holy name, we have to be knowledgeable about the tattva of the holy name, especially if we don't spontaneously chant without offense. So that's what we're learning here. And I was just glancing forward as well. There's quite some wonderful descriptions coming up about the different meditations of perfected devotees. So get ready. We'll be hearing about that next week, like visiting the nectar of devotion again, in one sense. Any final comments or questions? All right. So thank you, everyone. And let's get together for tomorrow for Brihat Bhagavatamrita. Okay, from 6 to 7. Okay. Jai Shri Prabhupada ki.
Yay.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah, thank you very much. Hari Bol.
Thank you. Sorry, time went so quick.
प्रभु की जय
Bye.